For those who don't know me, my name is Willis Maliambo. I'm a wellness coach, a licensed nutritionist, and a chef with over 10 years of experience helping others. I have a company that is called Zilly Wellness. We offer wellness book guides, detox supplements, online courses, wellness program, and virtual consultation. Just want to make sure that people know that this information is for information purposes only. This does not establish a relationship between a client and a practitioner. So we have a lot to cover today. Um, we're going to start with last week's recap. We're still on sugar, so we're going to talk about the story of sugars and how they impact our lives, impact of sugar on our health, and the type of sugar. This is specifically for the type of sugar that you can see in your diet. All right. So let's go with last week's recap. So we're gonna go with the story of sugar a little bit. For those who don't know, sugars are carbohydrate, and the role of carbohydrates in the body is to basically provide energy. So the type of sugar that you might see in nature, and when we talk about carbohydrate or starches, okay, so anything like grain, rice, these type of things, these starches are sugar. And then you also have processed food or fast-acting sugars. We talked about that last week in terms of like you have the glucose, the fructose, and the galactose that's written over here. The glucose is going to be the most popular one. That's the sugar that is used to make energy by our body. I talked about how glucose is super important for energy for the brain. You have fructose, that is a sugar that is found in fruits. Um, and galactose is the sugar that is found in milk. Okay, so we talked about all of these and we talked about the importance. If you didn't come to this lecture, it is posted on YouTube where you can find all of that information. And then we talked about how sugar is monitored in the body via a super important hormone called insulin. I went in depth about insulin. In these lectures, you will hear me talk a lot about insulin because insulin is one of these hormones that's just super important for your health in general. And it affects a whole bunch of other conditions. And then we talked about tips to reading your labels. We're going to delve deeper into this lecture where we'll have the different sugars listed for you to understand when you're reading your label, which sugar represent what. Okay, let me see if okay, I covered everything. So we're going to go to the next slide. Okay, the impact of sugar on your health. Super important. So, one thing, so last week we talked about how the body monitors sugar. What I want to talk about today is actually how the sugar really impact the body. So we talked about insulin. So now we're going to talk about how the sugars impact the body. So all sugars are digested the same, and that is super important to understand. Um, I've had people that told me like, oh, if I eat this, it's different from eating that. Of course, if you're eating processed food, it's different from eating fruit because fruits comes with a whole bunch of nutrients that is beneficial to your body and it's very different dynamic than if you're eating processed foods, right? So that is going to give you an extra layer of vitamins, but once the sugar get into your digestive system and in your bloodstream, it is digested the exact same way, meaning it is broken down. When we go back to the slide that has those three breakdown of glucose, and like I said, if you're a little confused, please watch my previous video on sugar. But it's going to be broken down based on the type of sugar that it is in the exact same way. So when people tell me, oh, this sugar is better than that sugar, I tell them actually, they're all going to be processed and broke in your body in the exact same way. So the main impact of sugar on your health, what is super important and what affects insulin, which we talked about last week, is that it raises your blood sugars level. And we talked about last week that your blood does not like to have a lot of sugar. That is why insulin is so important. And the reason for that is sugar acts as an acid in your blood. So it literally erodes your blood vessels, right? So I remember there was a study that I talked about last week where a lot of people were associating cardiovascular diseases with just different type of fat. But what we're finding out recently, 10 years ago, is that sugar also plays a huge role. And a lot of nutritionists monitor the level of sugar that they provide to people who have cardiovascular diseases because of the fact that sugar acts as an acid on your bloodstream. Okay, so what really affects your health when it comes to sugar? It consistently elevate your blood sugar leads to blood vessels and nerve damage, what I just talked about. It increases the risk of heart disease, organ damage, and insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is when your insulin is not working as it used to be, is not working properly. And insulin resistance has been correlated with metabolic disease syndrome, which is the start of a lot of chronic diseases that are affecting a whole bunch of people today. Okay, so we talked a little bit about that last week, but what I want to point out to you guys as you are building your diet, as you're trying to eat healthier, is to remember that it's not necessarily the type of sugar, because a lot of people are going to tell you that, oh, it's the type of sugar, slow acting sugar is this, slow acting sugar is that. At the end of the day, the quantity of the sugar that's getting into your bloodstream is what's important. Okay. And there are ways in which you can slow down the rate at which it spikes your sugar. But if you're still eating a big bowl of rice, it is going to affect your bloodstream. So don't focus too much at the type of sugar. Although, like I said, processed food is not going to have the nutrients that fruits or that certain other carbohydrates are going to have. So they're going to add a little bit more. They're going to give you the vitamins and minerals that help to heal your body, but it is still going to be digested the same. I like to point that out because I have a lot of debate with specifically health practitioner in the fitness field that will tell me like, oh no, you have to eat different type of carbohydrates. And honestly, if you think about the African diet, because I'm West African, we're heavy on carbohydrates. But I always tell people, it's not that carbohydrate is bad for African, or like for people in general. If we have a whole but I'm talking specifically about the African diet, is how it is consumed. Those all of these sauces that we created, all of these foods that we create is these sauces, and the I don't know how you say that in English, but we call it like futu or plagaria fufu. There you go, fufu. All of these that were created off of carbohydrate because these are grain based. When they used to eat it back then, they had like one meal a day. And think about it, they had one or maybe two meal a day, right? But then they will go to the plantations and they will work. Back in the day, bodies were really worked on. People were super active. And it's a completely different dynamic when we're talking about blue collars now. So now you're eating fufu in your sauce and you're sitting at a computer and it's just sitting there. Okay, you're not making it work because when you're working out, when you're building those muscles, the muscles are actually going to burn that sugar for you. So it's not going to have that much of an effect on your in your bloodstream. Okay, the muscles are like a energy making machine. That's why I would love weight training over any other type of exercise. And if you're trying to lose weight, I have a course coming out that explains the best type of exercise for weight loss. But weight training is our absolutely best because muscles are like a energy burning machine. They're not only going to burn the sugars, they're also going to burn your fats. So think about that. That's the difference. You're not going to eat food with a sauce and stay stationary and think that this is going to be helpful. And then you eat 3 times a day, a whole bunch of sugar. The quantity does matter, okay? All right. So the next step is exploring the type of sugar you may encounter. Like I said, last week, I showed this label and we went a little bit in details as to how to read the labels. This week, right, it was naturals versus added sugar and how to read like what are the type of sugar that they're adding. That's going to help you monitor your sugar. Ideally, you want to eat natural, organic, occurring food in nature. Um, but sometimes, you have to eat something that has been processed. And the way in which you can monitor what is going into your body is by reading the label, right? But what I would say is try to keep at least 80% of your regimen natural foods, okay? And we talked about natural versus added sugar. We're going to delve a little bit more deeper in here. Okay, this is where I need my notes because this goes really into details. All right. All right, give me 1 second. Okay, so we talked about natural sugars, what they are. Natural sugars are the sugars that are going to be found in food. They're naturally there. So we talked about, I don't know if we talked about this yet, but I'm going to tell you guys that micronutrients. So we have proteins, we have carbohydrates, we have fat. And these three micronutrients, they're called macro because we consume them in a large quantities because our body uses it for energy. Okay, and energy is the source of anything. Me moving my hand like that needs energy, but there are also involuntary movement within my body, like your heart pumping or your lungs, that needs energy as well. So the natural sugars are going to be the sugars that are found naturally in the foods, naturally in the ground, right? Um, and if you consume them, you usually can have enough of the quantity of carbohydrate or sugar that you need per day. You don't need to have added sugars, right? So that is why sometimes consuming processed food can be dangerous because in one serving you have three times the amount of sugar that's necessary, whereas in a natural concept it's already given prepackaged with the amount of sugar that your body needs. And like I'm going to reiterate, I talked about that last week, but your body needs some type of sugar, right? I'm an advocate. I love a low carbohydrate diet, but I don't advocate for a zero carb diet because your body needs some type of sugar, not even to just fuel your muscles, fuel your brain, and to red blood cells, right? Like to make your blood. It needs that type of sugar, okay? So what are the types of natural sugars? So we talked about fructose last week. So fructose, so let me break it down a little bit. I think I have a little bit more time. When we're talking about digestion, is like I said last week, you want to think about when you're eating, you're not just eating for Willize, right? You're eating for all of these cells, all of these microbiomes, all of these miniature living organisms that are in your body, and that actually makes your body operate smoothly. So digestion is the process of taking this large quantities that we can see with our eye and breaking it down to even the smallest compound so that these things in your body can consume food, okay? So that your cells can consume the food that they need, so that your brain can work optimally. Your digestive system, like I said, has a whole bunch of microbiome. I talked about that earlier in the lecture, so it's on this YouTube as well. All of that, we're consuming food to fuel all of these things in our body. So when we break them down, they break down into different type of things. So fructose, like I said, fructose is the sugar that is found in specifically fruits and honey. It is extremely sweet. Extremely sweet. And that's why we're going to find in the added sugar, a lot of processed food add fructose to their meals, I guess to the food because it is so sweet, it's almost addictive, right? So fructose, we have lactose. Really, lactose is really, it's not the smallest compound. The smallest compound is galactose, but I put lactose because we are more familiar with lactose. Lactose is a galactose compound and a glucose compound put together. And as you digest lactose, it's broken down into galactose and glucose. Okay. Um, Lactose, to break that down, people who are lactose intolerant, they don't have the enzyme to break that down. And so they have this huge lactose compound that's just chilling in their intestine and causing a whole lot of havoc because it's not supposed to be there. It's not supposed to not be broken down. Okay. So that's one thing to know. And then we have glucose, that is found in most carbohydrates. So most carbohydrate has some type of glucose, galactose, glucose and fructose. Banana has glucose and fructose, and it is the preferred source of energy. So it is what you're going to see in our blood more frequently. The other smaller quantities, like the fructose and the lactose, they're going to be worked on. So when you eat like a fruit, right? When you eat something that has fructose, it actually has to go to the liver to get changed into glucose because your body only uses glucose as currency. Okay. Just a little scientific thing that I added on there for you guys to be aware. I think it really helps when we're talking about eating, when you can kind of categorize these different things. So if you're like lactose intolerant, you understand where this come from. Glucose, when you're measuring your glucose at the doctors, you understand what's going on here. And like I said, at the end of the day, all of these type of sugars are broken down to one of these compounds, and they're going to raise your blood sugar, specifically glucose. the quickest and the fastest because glucose is quickly absorbed in your bloodstream because that's what the body likes to change, okay? So how to recognize natural sugars on your food label. Again, we talked about this last week. Whenever you see total sugar, so dietary fibers are type of carbohydrate, but we don't digest them. We can't break them down. Okay. The purpose of fibers is they help to fuel the microorganism in our digestive system. But usually, foods that have fibers, you want a lot of them, a lot of them, because they come with a whole bunch, even more nutrients like phytonutrients and vitamins and minerals more than fruits. Okay. I'm not even a fruit person, to be honest with you, but I'm a fiber person. And if you want like to have that glowy skin, if you want your body to just feel comfortable, whenever we're putting someone in a detox, we want to make sure they have a lot of fibers. And the fiber portion of the food is going to stay in your digestive system and help to detox your colon, help to detox your digestive system because it's going to help you go to the bathroom. But the other nutrients that comes around with the fiber is going to help heal your body. Okay. All right, you guys. I always get nervous with these webinars because I have to go super fast and I never have enough time. Okay. What are added sugars and how you spot them in your food label? So here comes the fun part. Here comes the part that I think you want to be aware if you want to screenshot this. If you're a part of my mailing list, I will send that to you. We always do a recap on the Monday and so forth. So if you're part of my mailing list, you're going to get a list of that because I think it's important. Like I said, you can't always eat natural food. What about if you're traveling, if you're away? I have a lot of clients who are nurses, for instance, a lot of clients who are traveling all the time and they have to adjust themselves. They have to adjust their regimen. Yes, they want to get enough fiber. Yes, they want to eat a certain way and we work on that together, but they might have to purchase something quickly on the go. Now, I discourage that to happening from happening a lot, especially if you're working with me, but it might happen sometimes. So you want to be aware of the additional sugars that they're adding to your food. Again, the quantity is super important when it comes to sugar and the effect that it has in your body. Okay. And processed foods are usually going to have a lot more of that quantity because of these added sugars. So first, let's look at the label. We went over that last week, but I just want to quickly go over it. So on the label, you're going to have the total sugars. Total sugars is going to be part of the natural sugars of the compound. So what if say they use like for instance, if you buy like the little fufu contain like boxes because you're making fufu, you're not in Africa, child. You in America like me, and you can't really make you don't have everything that you need to make the fufu. So you're buying the box fufu. The total sugar is going to be already part of the starch that is used, okay? The added sugar is what we're going to break down. So the added sugar, they will add it. Sometimes people will add it to make the food actually more addictive. That's very possible. Or to make it more like sweeter to sell it better. Okay. So when we're talking about added sugar, so first you want to look at included added sugar. 10 grams is a lot. Okay. It's double the size of the amount of the sugar. But then you want to look at the ingredients because you want to look at what type of sugar are they adding. Now, I did say that all sugar are processed the same. However, there are some certain sugars that are extracted from certain foods and that are the sugar itself is processed and that processing causes very detrimental things to your body. And we're going to explore them really quickly because I only have 9 more minutes. Okay. Sucrose is your natural it is your natural table sugar. It is found in many fruits and vegetables, so it's kind of a natural sugar. And it's combined with glucose and fructose, but it's often extracted. So it's found in natural foods, but it's often extracted, processed and extracted from foods like sugarcane, or beets to make table sugar. Okay. Now, the one I do want to focus on is this high fructose corn syrup. This is where I'm like saying there are certain things that have been processed. Okay, this is a sweetener that is made from cornstarch. It is made into a liquid form. and it is converting glucose to fructose. So, like I said earlier, fructose is extremely sweet. Extremely sweet. But when it comes from nature, it is packaged in all of these nutrients. When it comes from fruits that we're eating, it's packaged in these nutrients that helps to deliver the sugar a little bit differently. So still digested the same. It's still going, when I say digested the same, it's going to have the same impact on the blood sugar, but it's going to be packaged with things that is going to help your body detox, right? Which is great when you're eating a lot of sugar. Um, but high fructose corn syrup, I personally think it should be banned from anywhere. If you see a high fructose corn syrup on any processed foods that you're consuming, please let it go. The processing is causing a lot of havoc on the body, the processing of that specific sugar. So again, I'm differentiating this from digesting. It is still digested the same. It is still going to increase your blood sugar, but the processing has a specific effect on your body. And what we found is kids who are not supposed to develop diseases like fatty liver. This is an adult disease, but because this high fructose corn syrup is added so much to the fruit juices and to the stuff that we give kids, it is causing kids to have fatty liver diseases. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you if you have kids at home or if you have anything, any processed package at home, go into your pantry and look for this high fructose corn syrup. If it has high fructose corn syrup, throw it away. Okay, that's gonna be my advice for today. Okay, so you can recognize again in the ingredient added sugars if it's a sucrose, a high fructose corn syrup, any type of syrup usually is going to be a sugar. Malt, okay, is made of two glucose molecule. It's usually found in malt grains, so certain type of cereals, right? Like barley, wheat, sorry, can create malt, so it's an added sugar. There's actually a drink called malt, and they make beer out of that too, right? Another one is anytime you hear the OSE, any word ending with OSE on your full label, it's most likely going to be a sugar. So dextrose, you have honey. Honey is naturally occurring in nature. It is high fructose, so it's very sweet. But if it's added to the food, it becomes an added sugar, even though it's a natural sugar. It's fine in nature. Anything that has concentrated, so concentrated juices and so forth, you want to avoid. Nectars, you want to avoid. So if you, and agave. And again, if you're on my mailing list, you're going to receive this list. If you're watching this from YouTube, you should be on my mailing list. But if you're not, you could screenshot it and remind yourself that whenever you go to your pantry, do these, do any of these names come up? And if they do throw, well, I won't say throw everything away, but try to limit your consumption of these added sugars. Okay, I wanted to end with this because it's super important. So, because of this old craze of, oh, now we want to eat a low sugar diet, let's take sugar away. And that's usually when you have some things being created, it doesn't come from wanting to destroy people. It just happens to destroy people. But the people in the lab actually are trying to do something to help people, right? So when this whole craze about sugars is bad for you, we have these different phases, right? When these whole craze happened, well, people who were selling products that had a lot of sugar came up with other things to sell, and they came up with alternative sugars. So alternative sugars are sugars that use alternative ingredients. They don't have any carbo without the calories and the carbohydrate. So the goal and the hope is that they don't spike your blood sugar. They usually don't, but they have other very detrimental effects on your body. And I tell people to stay away from artificial sugar alternative. So you have artificial sweeteners. These are synthetic made, especially the artificial sweeteners. If you see anything that has aspartame, sucralose, sarakin, isofalmine, potassium, neotame, and again, I'm going to send that to my mailing list. Stay away. These have been directly correlated with cancer. Please stay away. The thought about creating these was good, but in the end, in the long run, it's not. Sugar alcohols, they have a weird taste, and they usually end with OL at the end. So erythritol or xylitol, right? Very low in calorie. Sometimes or most times they create digestive issues. So it's a trade-off. You don't want no calories, you don't want to raise your blood sugar, but you want to have digestive issues. I don't know about that. Okay. And then the natural sweeteners. Honestly, the natural sweeteners, these are natural sources of sweeteners. They have zero calories that may help correlate or help your blood sugar. They're my favorite alternative if you're going to do sugars alternative, because they're from nature. Um, but of course, they're not going to be as sweet as what you buy at the store. So you have things like stevia, okay? Monk fruit, love monk fruit. Honey, we talked about honey. So if you're adding honey to whatever you're making, it's a little different than if they're adding it to a processed food. But remember, honey is fructose, so it's very sweet and it's going to spike your blood sugar. Okay, coconut sugar. It has a low glycemic index, perfect for cooking. People who like to bake things and want to go on low on sugar, coconut sugar is a nice alternative. Date sugar is an excellent alternative for brown sugar, but it's super high. I mean, if you eat in a dry date, you already know it's high in the glycemic index. So, 50-50. I don't know how I feel about it. Okay, so we're gonna end with this. I have 2 minutes. What are the daily recommendation? Added sugar should not pass 10% of your daily calories intake. You're probably like, what does this mean? If you are eating a calorie, if you're counting calories and you're eating a 2,000 calorie intake, it's about to be you have to stick to 200. But you really want to try to avoid any type of added sugars to your food. All right, so I'm gonna leave Q&A. Let me see. Um, I'm gonna end with a thank you. If you have any question, do email me. I have a weight loss book and a weight loss course coming out at the end of June, so very soon that I'm super excited about. Ending this. Um, Not too many people show today. Can't even complain because come back from a holiday weekend is always iffy. But I enjoy doing this class, and I'm hoping to see all of you guys who are watching for you from YouTube at this point because nobody's on the webinar right now. Hoping to see all of you guys soon. Bye.